Howdy guys, Bookie Laura here. Now recently I was tagged by the wonderful Wilde Book Garden to do the Shakespeare Book Tag. Now this is an original tag that she created and I'm really excited about it, to be honest. I think because I did ShakeTube towards the tail end of last year and that got me quite into Shakespeare, so doing something that was Shakespeare related I just thought was quite cool. I think so I'm going to give it a whirl and see what happens. For the record, I'm not very good at tag videos. I have an absolutely appalling memory for books, so after I've read them I find I struggle to remember specific details of them and characters, and so I do struggle with tags. I'm just putting that out there right from the start. Question 1 is based around Much Ado About Nothing. Your favourite bickering couple whom everyone knows really care about each other. I'm not a big fan of romance, so I kind of like the bickering couple thing because I think it's more realistic in a kind of, I don't know, bantery way, I suppose. But anyway, I went with Hannah, I think she's called Hannah Donnelly, and Nick from the Illuminae Files. I think that they just, for me, their relationship, although a lot of romance, and especially in YA, is aggravating for me, to say the least, I think that I appreciated their kind of more bantery relationship, so it seems more real. Number 2, Measure for Measure, a book whose plot or genre is really hard to explain to other people. I'm going to go with a really obvious one, which is More Than This by Patrick Ness. I remember when I read about it before I read the book, thinking, why can't anyone explain what this is about? And then when I had to do the same, it's virtually impossible. It's like, so this kid dies and then he wakes up and that's about all I can tell you. So it's really difficult to summarise even just the basics of the plot. Question number 3. A Midsummer Night's Dream, your favourite book featuring fairies or elves. Now this really challenged me and I spent a really long time on Goodreads looking through the list of books that I'd read. Apparently I don't read a lot of books that have got elves or fairies in them, / any. In fact, the only one that I could really put in there was Lord of the Rings, I decided, and I've not even read the whole of Lord of the Rings. I don't think I've read to a bit that had elves or fairies, or elves, but it was the only book I could think of, so I need to read more fantasy, perhaps. Question number 4, Hamlet, an underutilised female character. And I think for me, the one that really sort of came to mind straight away was Cress from the Lunar Chronicles. She is the character, from what I remember, who's based on Rapunzel. She has a lot of hair. And I remember when I was reading it, I haven't read the final book, but I remember when I was reading Cress thinking, God, she's so annoying, and there was a real feeling of she'd been created into this weak and pathetic character who had nothing to offer, but as the book went on you were aware that she did have more to offer. It was just not being utilised, so she seems a perfect answer for this question. And then where am I? Question 5, the sonnets, choose your favourite poem. I literally missed this one out. I don't have a favourite poem. I wouldn't even say I have a poem, let alone a favourite one. Poetry is not something that appeals to me. I did think for a while that maybe I'd go back to some of the ones that I studied when I was at school, but I thought, you know, if you're having to go back to poems that you were forced to read, it's probably not a good place to be, and maybe I need to get more into poetry. Question number 6, Richard III, a protagonist willing to do anything to get what they want. Again, I struggle with this because I suck at remembering characters, but as I looked through my Goodreads sort of books that I'd read list, I came across Mark, whatever his name is, from The Martian, and I think for me he really came to mind because he literally does do anything possible. I think it was a situation when you're reading it, you're quite inspired by his motivation that a lot of people would give up. A lot of people would think that's too hard or I can't do that, but he just keeps on going. And I know it's in terms of survival, so perhaps you could argue that anyone would, but he does seem to, he did seem to go above and beyond. So question 7, Antony and Cleopatra, your favourite trope or bookish buzzword or that sort of thing for which you still haven't found the perfect book. For me, this was quite an easy one to answer, actually, because I'm still looking for the epitome of a strong female character. I think that there are lots of really good female characters, but I've never quite found that one that sums up for me what a strong woman is about. I think that lots of books, particularly YA, have gone for that quite aggressive female character, which is awesome to see because there is strength in that. But I think I I'm still looking for that woman who isn't necessarily aggressive, but she says what she thinks, she's smart, she's intelligent, and she doesn't let people walk all over her. And just for that to be the strength that she has. That's what I'd like to see. Question 8, Titus Andronicus, a lesser known work by a popular author or one which you want more people to read. For this, I again struggled because I think popular authors I tend to read the popular books by, but then one came to mind which was Michael Crichton. I'm a huge Michael Crichton fan, so I have read a lot of them. The difficulty then was, how do I know which ones are considered to be popular and which ones are considered not to be popular? But anyway, I went with one which I don't think, it's not Jurassic Park. So I went with Prey by Michael Crichton. So I'm not 100% sure, perhaps this is a really popular book of his, but it was the book that really got me into Michael Crichton. I think that it balances out really nicely that science element that Jurassic Park does, and all his other work does as well, but it was the book that made it for me, that he had these, you know, little creatures, and the way that he sort of cited real scientific studies and used that to back it up. I just love Michael Crichton. Let's not go there. Let's not go there right now. Question number 9, King Lear, a complex female villain or anti-hero? I mean, this was really interesting, and not because of my answer, because, I mean, to put it bluntly, I went with the baddie from Lunar Chronicles. I didn't really know. But what was very interesting was when I sat down again and looked through my Goodreads list thinking, okay, let's find these female villains and think about these characters. There were so few of them that I found that really interesting, that there are so few of the villains in books, or anybody that could be considered a villain, was a female. And I thought, yeah, that's interesting. It's something that I'd perhaps like to see more of, because you know what? There are a lot of evil women out there. There are. Moving on. Question number 10, The Taming of the Shrew. Choose 2 polarising books, one that you loved and one that you hated. Now, I could go all day about this, all day. But I decided that when I actually thought about my favourite books ever and my least favourite books ever, I decided to go with Stephen King, because actually I love Stephen King, but some of his books are literally my favourite books I've ever read. Some of them are literally my least favourite books I've ever read. So if you were to ask me, or if anybody were to ask me, what is your favourite book in the world ever, I always say The Shining by Stephen King. It's difficult for me to say why, because as I've said a million times, my memory sucks for books, but I cannot forget that feeling of wanting to keep on reading, to not being able to put the book down. That is what stays with me about The Shining. But then if people were to ask me, well, what is your least favourite book ever? I mean, there are a few, but one of the sort of top 3 would be The Gunslinger. And again, I don't have a huge memory for plot. However, I remember when I was reading it, I love Stephen King, so I wanted to love this book, thinking, what is happening? Or more to the point, why is nothing happening? Like, this entire book seems to be about somebody walking and seeing someone in the distance. There seemed to be no plot, no anything. And so, yeah. So Stephen King is really hit or miss for me. I either love it or I hate it. There's very little in between. And then finally, question 11, give me your hands if we be friends. Tag some people. I mean, I don't know who to tag. I hate tagging people in videos. I suck at it. So I'm just going to go with people who took part in ShakeTube. So if you took part in ShakeTube last year, then I think that you should do this tag. But more specifically, people that I remember taking part in it were Curtis Books and Films and Sue from Sue's Book Nook. I don't think that Steve Partridge took part in it. I can't remember. But anyway, if you did, I would love to see you taking part in this. Or if you just have a love for Shakespeare, then feel free. It would be great to see more people taking part, and it would be great to see Kara's original tag video doing so well. So thank you to Kara for tagging me. Everybody crack on and do the tag. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.